This is a run-through of a combat-oriented dungeon in the Divinity Original Sin Alpha. You can see the version in the top right corner, version 114. Right now there's 3 characters in my party. We got Roderick here, Scarlet, and Jahan, who's a henchman I found in town. The 2 default characters right now are part of the placeholder character system. You can't customize them fully yet. So we start going through this dungeon, and pretty much immediately we come upon some enemies. The first character who gets a turn is my warrior, who I have Scarlet set up as. And I just sort of move closer, cast a buff, which improves the attributes temporarily. And then with my ranger character, part of the problem with this game is a consideration you have to make is for elevation. So when I try and shoot all these arrows at the 3 cultists in front of me, I only hit a few of them because of the difficulties in determining the height differences. This is Jahan, the companion I found in town. He specializes in air attacks and water attacks. So I cast this Chain Lightning spell, which is incredibly powerful in this current build. I can't stress that enough. It's just ridiculously powerful. It hits the entire group. It stuns them. It does quite a bit of damage, all in one shot, and for a very low action point cost. After a turn, you'll see sometimes the action points preserved pop up. That's where the points you spent in a turn go unused. You can bank them for future turns. There is an upper limit, but early in the game here, it's pretty hard to hit that. Now with my warrior, you just saw me rush into combat using a skill that really closes the distance and saves some action points in terms of getting to your enemies in range. This is actually a pretty easy fight, even though there's more of them than my party. My characters are higher level than they are. You can see them at level 5-ish right now. My characters are level 7, I believe. Right now I have this current party set up in a way to use my warrior Scarlet to take most of the damage, but she doesn't deal a lot of damage herself. I use the shield, and I've selected a few character traits that improve health and armor, but I've sacrificed in terms of my damage dealing capabilities. That way I can use my ranger and warrior to both just unleash range attacks and hopefully not take too much damage. You can see the enemies in this fight have a variety of different attacks. That guy just launched a earth attack at me, which resulted in the poison that you can see on the ground. The environmental status effects tend to persist for a long time. Here I'm checking to see if the whirlwind skill has range, and it does, as you can see by the red outline on the enemy characters. So whirlwind actually extends your normal weapon range for some reason. It's already a pretty powerful skill to begin with. And now these guys are about ready to go down. All their melee characters are dead. The 2 remaining archers are going to go down very easily. Also, right now in this current build, the healing spells are pretty well overpowered. They're just as effective as potions in terms of healing, but it actually repeats every turn, as you can see by the counter next to Scarlet. So every turn, I'm getting a full potion's worth of health almost. Again, I used a rush spell to close the distance, do some damage in the process. It's just much more efficient, even if you have to wait a turn to cast it. Here again, you can see the elevation coming into play. My archer just missed. He shot right into the ground. That's something that needs to be worked on, is being able to determine the elevation issues. That skill I just launched was basically the little brother of Chain Lightning called Blitz Bolt. It does damage to a single character as well as the stunning potential. There you can see my character just got healed again from the potion, or from the spell that heals over time. Critical hits roll on a random chance. You can see it in your character screen. There's various stats and different weapons that improve your critical chance. I haven't found it a big factor in the gameplay so far, but maybe later in the game it could be important if you build a character that's focused on doing criticals. Well, now that party's finished off, so I'm going to pick up all this loot. Check and see if anything's good for my characters. Loot's pretty random right now. I'm not sure if it's actually intended to be that way or if it's just a placeholder or loot table. I'm adding this special arrow to my Ranger's repertoire so I can use that against the next group I'm going to face. They do different status effects. This staff is actually pretty good, so I go ahead and equip it. It adds 2 points to different skills. Fire and Earth Elemental. And since my wizard isn't doing too much hand-to-hand combat anyway, I can go ahead and pick that even if it's worse than my dagger. For some random reason, you can sit on this torture rack. I don't really know why they added the feature. It's interesting, but there's not much to it, really. There's some spoilers in this next room, so go ahead and ignore the dialogue if you want to avoid that. But once I open this door, you can see in the shadows there's quite a lot of enemies in here. This dialogue is with the boss of sorts of this area. As you can kind of see in the shadows, there's quite a lot of enemies in here. I believe there's 11 in total. A lot of them have ranged attacks. At this point, it looks kind of like I don't have a lot of options because all my characters have to plow through this single door. So I'm just kind of feeling out my options, checking the ranges, seeing the distance to travel, as you can see on the ground, how many action points it takes by the white dots. That's a pretty important factor in casting spells and for shooting arrows because range is definitely a consideration. The first thing I do is shoot off this static cloud arrow, which does two things. It takes a few of the guys out of the fight by electrocuting them and stunning them, kind of like a taser. And then it also blocks line of sight for casting options. Then again, I use my Chain Lightning skill to just do a lot of damage to a significant group. There's a decent variety too, though. Some of the particular enemies close in on me. You can see this caster walking in. Some of them summon enemies as well. Like, I think they summon a few zombies at you. This guy attempts a charm skill on my ranger, and I passed the save check, so my character will not be charmed and switch to the other side. Now my warrior finally gets a turn. For some reason, because I was in dialogue, it got thrown to the back of the initiative. So I just take a few swings at the guy in front, that way to try and clear some of this area out so I can get into the room and deal with the rest of them. Now I use charm myself here on one of these characters to try and just lessen the damage I'm going to take here in the initial rounds. And my charm happens to succeed, so this guy should work for me for a round, I believe. As I mentioned before, I have my warrior set up to just sort of take more damage than deal it. And you just saw that block, and it actually absorbs all damage once you have a successful block. And even early in the game, you can get a pretty high block chance. I think I'm up to 30% at this point. Unfortunately, they just charmed my ranger again and were successful this time. So now I'm going to be without him for, I believe, a round. It might be 2. I'm not 100% sure on that. And now, in addition to that, my warrior got hit by a knockdown arrow, so I'm also going to lose a turn there. So now I'm just down to my wizard, who really doesn't take damage very well. So hopefully they don't shoot at him too much. And this could get ugly pretty quick if I don't regain control of my other party members fast. Again, Chain Lightning is really good. Here I'm checking to see the health of the different enemies so I can try and kill off one of them if possible. I always try and get rid of the weaker characters. That way you eliminate a source of damage to be taken. Also, another thing you can do is kill off the mages, because they can either summon more characters or heal their allies in the fight, just like you can heal yours. You can see that right there. They just cast a healing spell on that cultist on the top left of the screen. It seems to be going okay right now. It could be better, but I've got control of my characters again, at least. Casting a healing spell on my warrior. And another Chain Lightning, because why not? Here at the top of the screen, you're going to see my character, Roderick, the Ranger, actually has a flanking penalty against him. It's kind of hard to predict when that flanking penalty takes place, because you can see he's not actually flanked here on the screen, but it does cause a penalty to your armor, so it reduces your damage absorption. At this point, I think I've killed off 4 of them. So, as I said, it's going okay. My characters seem to have most of their health right now. Another thing you can see on my characters is I always try to keep some skill points saved in case I find a weapon I might want, so the up arrow represents that I have skills to spend. The spell I just cast there was Ice Shard. It's basically a freezing attack. It's kind of like what it sounds. And it does a medium amount of damage to a single character and has a potential to freeze them. It looks like the freeze was not successful, but at least it hurt him. So now I'm thinking I'm going to move my warrior in here to attack the characters I've been shooting chain lightning at the whole round, because they have some summoning skills and I don't really want to deal with that. Hopefully get rid of them. So I use my rush to close the distance. It looks like they did summon a zombie to attack the characters I just left behind, so hopefully I can clear them out. But to be on the safe side, I think I'm going to summon this Ice Elemental, which will sort of take some of the damage away from my party members, and the Elemental can both attack with hand-to-hand and cast spells of his own. Elementals also die pretty quickly, though. For some reason, the AI likes to shoot at them. At this point, my rush skill is in cooldown, so I have to walk up to Evelyn, a much less efficient way of closing the distance. But I'm able to still do pretty good damage against her because she doesn't have a lot of armor. She's a mage. Now my elemental is going to get a turn soon. And I'm thinking right now I'm going to cast an ice wall. That way I can block off some of this ranged damage, because the ice wall can block projectiles as well as do damage to what gets hit by it. So I was able to freeze 2 of the archers as well as block them from shooting at me, I believe. I think Evelyn just raised another zombie to attack me. I usually try to ignore them because they usually summon at a pretty low level. I think they're level 3. So they don't really deal a lot of damage. They're mostly just annoying. But if you do kill one, they explode into that poison effect you can see on the ground. So I don't really want to deal with that either. For some reason, he's still able to shoot, even though it looks like he's frozen, so the status effect must not have taken on him. You can see the zombie not doing much damage at all, 12 hit. Able to kill off another one of these cultists. So it looks like this battle's pretty well in hand at this point. It's just a matter of cleaning it up. Here I'm going to get rid of this zombie, and you can see the poison explosion once I do. This skill is Barrage. I didn't opt to use it, though, because it's just kind of a waste of action points on a small zombie. Right now I tend to find the ranger skills a little bit underdeveloped. They tend to cost a lot more action points than they're worth. Barrage has its uses, though, because it's good for a single opponent that has a lot of health. But here I just have a lot of smaller opponents. Now my stupid elemental died. They really have no armor at all. They just go down fast. Evelyn keeps running away from my warrior, which I guess makes sense, but she keeps running and running and running. There's really no chance for her to actually get away, so maybe that's something to be worked on. At this point, you can see a lot of elemental effects on the ground. There's frozen water from both my elemental exploding and from my ice wall. There's a lot of poison on the ground. that archer actually fell on that frozen ice sheet, and that causes him to lose a turn, just like when my warrior got hit with a knockdown arrow. Yet another zombie. At this point, I'm trying to walk and get back to Evelyn, because the zombie's just kind of inconsequential, but you can see the different arrow indicators. That shows a potential attack of opportunity against you if you walk through their radius. So I go the longer way to avoid the attack and take another swing at Evelyn. Also, attacks of opportunity don't cost any points. So at this point, I'm going to freeze Evelyn with my Ice Shard to make her stop running around and hopefully just finish this off faster. The freezing status effect works. And now I'm free to take swings at her. And now I'm able to kill off Evelyn. More chain lightning. But now that she's gone, I can get rid of the stupid minions and the remaining cultists, and in this battle, pick up the loot. Also, you can see above Jahan that he wants to talk to me, and after the battle there will be a dialogue with him. That's the exclamation point above his head. At this point, you can see also a couple of things that tend to annoy me in this current build. As I mentioned before, the elevation's kind of hard to determine, but as is what's blocking you. So I tried to shoot at those archers with my own ranger, and it hit this object, but that really doesn't make sense because they've been able to hit me with arrows the entire combat. So it's very hard to tell sometimes, and it often leads to some wasted action points. Yet again, I get charmed. So that's also kind of the annoyance too. In the end of the battles, it's clearly over, you've clearly won, yet it tends to drag on and on for a while sometimes. Also, just in general, the animations are quite slow. There's no real way to speed those up right now. So the combats just take a lot longer than I think they should at this point. More chain lightning, and the enemies are all dead. This combat is over. You can see my ranger fall down yet again on the ice sheet. They take a very long time to dissipate. But now I can pick up a lot of this loot. There's quite a bit of stuff in here. I can talk to Jahan here, find out what he has to say about the situation. This is an example of the dual dialogue where both characters take part in the conversation. And after picking up the loot here, there's some information about the main storyline coming up. But I'm going to leave that out of the video and prevent the spoilers. So that looks like this will be it for this combat run-through on Divinity Original Sin Alpha on Steam Early Access.